told some people who were close to me. I didn't confront him though, because at that point in time, I knew that I believed Michael was innocent, but the fact of the matter is I didn't know 100%. And if there was even like one shred of doubt, I didn't want to risk re-traumatizing somebody who was potentially a victim. And remember, at that point in time, Jordan Chandler was the only accuser, and the media certainly wasn't focused on it. They were more focused on, Michael Jackson's new album release. And, it wasn't all flattering, but, it seemed like this was, water under the bridge and something that didn't need to be addressed. He was a nice guy. I mean, I'm going to be honest. He was very nice, always very polite. He would always carry a guitar around with him. He made his own music. He would describe it as pop R&B like Michael Jackson. I remember that because he said it many times very clearly. He would wear fedoras. That was Jordan.
What were your determinations when you examined him? He seemed to essentially be a healthy guy. The lupus is an autoimmune disease, and he only had skin involvement, which had destroyed part of the skin of his nose, and his nasal surgeries and all were really reconstructive to try and look normal.
It's time to put the win in winter at Dunkin'. Introducing Winter Blend Coffee. A vibrant new medium roast that's full-bodied and smooth with notes of ginger snap. Take on the day with the new Hotter Iced Winter Blend Coffee from Dunkin'. America runs on Dunkin'.
Vaping can deliver toxic metals like nickel and lead into your lungs. That's metal in your lungs.
Lupus is an autoimmune disease, as you said, where the immune system, one of our larger systems that's designed to protect us against germs and viruses, actually attacks our own body cells and tissues. Many patients with lupus have vitiligo, but he had a form of skin lupus called discoid lupus, which affects about 40% of the patients with lupus, and you do get depigmentation.
Michael Jackson suffered from a skin disease called vitiligo. He was accused throughout his career for decades by the media of deliberately bleaching his skin from brown to white because they said that he hated his race.
Is your skin lighter because you don't like being black?
He insisted throughout his life that he in fact suffered from vitiligo.
I have a skin disorder that destroys the pigmentation of the skin. It's something that I cannot help.
And then when he passed away, his autopsy report confirmed that he did indeed suffer from vitiligo. Vitiligo is a disease which attacks the pigment in the skin, and what it does is it turns your skin a very pale white color, almost translucent, and it makes it very sensitive to the sun. So it's a very debilitating condition.
One thing you say to lupus patients, don't let the sun hit your skin.
That's right.
So that umbrella, would you carry it out in the sun, may have been just that.
That's exactly correct.
So what it does is it doesn't, turn you from brown to white all in one go. Of course, it happens in tiny increments, and it happens at different speeds all over your body, so it can leave you looking almost like paint splatter or blood splatter. It's very random.
It's very interesting. It affects the neck, the face, the upper part of the wrists, and the groin.
So the allegation by Evan Chandler was that his son could accurately describe discoloration on Michael Jackson's genitals, which had been caused by vitiligo. They seek and obtain a warrant which allows them to force Michael Jackson to submit to a naked photo shoot by the police.
I have been forced to submit to a dehumanizing and humiliating examination by the Santa Barbara County Sheriff Department and the Los Angeles Police Department earlier this week. They served a search warrant on me which allowed them to view and photograph my body, including my penis, my buttocks, my lower torso, thighs, and any other area that they wanted. They were supposedly looking for any discoloration, spotting, blotches, or other evidence of a skin color disorder called vitiligo, which I have previously spoken about. The warrant also directed me to cooperate in any examination of my body by their physician to determine the condition of my skin, including whether I have vitiligo or any other skin disorder. The warrant further stated that I had no right to refuse the examination or photographs, and if I failed to cooperate with them, they would introduce that refusal at any trial as an indication of my guilt. It was the most humiliating ordeal of my life, one that no person should ever have to suffer. And even after experiencing the indignity of this search, the parties involved were still not satisfied and wanted to take even more pictures. It was a nightmare, a horrifying nightmare. But if this is what I have to endure to prove my innocence, my complete innocence, so be it.
There's a book by Evan Chandler's brother Ray where he quotes Evan as having a discussion with his lawyer Larry Feldman, and they're talking about the vitiligo situation. The DA's office has told the Chandlers that Michael has a skin condition called vitiligo, and that the skin condition can constantly change the way that your body looks because it's constantly attacking the pigment. And so the district attorney has told the Chandlers that this is great for them, because if Jordan Chandler's description matches, then it matches. But if it doesn't match, then they can just say, oh well, that's because of the vitiligo. So Larry Feldman says, either way, we win.
So, after they searched Michael Jackson's body, no arrest warrant was issued. Charles, what were the initial reports about this body search?
In early 1994, law enforcement sources told two different media outlets, Reuters and USA Today, that there was no match.
Jordan Chandler's drawing of Michael Jackson's genitalia have since been leaked. And when you really look at it with words such as my theory and be selective, it's questionable whether these are truly Jordan's own descriptions or instructions from someone else. It's also important to note that Evan Chandler has admittingly given Michael Jackson painkillers through injections to his buttocks. So, at the very least, Evan saw Jackson's gluteus and that he had discoloration on his lower body region.
The smoking gun obtains a document which is called, they say, the Linden Affidavit. It's written by Detective Linden, who works for the authorities that are investigating the Geordie Chandler case, and she has taken from Geordie Chandler a description of Michael Jackson's genitals. And Geordie Chandler tells Linden that Michael Jackson is circumcised. When they conduct the body search, it turns out Michael Jackson is in fact not circumcised, meaning his description has not matched. What had happened was that Barry Rothman was being sued by Michael Jackson for extortion, and so he quit representing the Chandlers. The Chandlers then proceeded to hire Gloria Allred, who held a press conference claiming that the Chandlers were ready for a criminal case.
To make a charge against the celebrity.
Gloria Allred is shortly fired, and Barry Rothman, who's now working in the background, suggests Larry Feldman as a replacement, an attorney who is willing to push for a civil case. Charles, what is the difference between a civil case and a criminal case?
A civil case is where you sue somebody, and that's for money, whereas a criminal case is brought by the state, the government, and that's a case where if you're convicted, then you go to prison. So they're two very separate processes. What happens is the criminal case stalls because they can't find any evidence to suggest that Michael's done anything wrong. So they raid his house, they don't find anything incriminating. They raid his family home, they don't find anything incriminating. They raid his doctor's offices, they don't find anything incriminating. Of course, you've got a boy at the center of the case who at first said he wasn't molested, then changed his story and said that he was molested, and only changed his mind after being given sodium amytal. So then they go off looking for other victims, and they can't find any.
In fact, if anybody wants to go back to 1993, when I was interviewed by the Santa Barbara Police Department, I sat there and I gave them the names. They're on record. They have all of this information, but they were scanning Michael Jackson. All they cared about was trying to find something on Michael Jackson.
Who you said, by the way, did not abuse you.
Who Michael was innocent, and that was what the interview was about with the police in 1993. I told them he is not that guy, and they said, well, maybe you just don't understand your friend. And I said, no, I know the difference between pedophiles and somebody who's not a pedophile because I've been molested. Here's the names. Go investigate.
And these detectives hammer away at Corey Feldman. What happened with you and Michael Jackson? And over and over and over again, Corey Feldman says, nothing happened. I have racked my brain. I've thought about, well, did something happen and I didn't realize it? No, nothing happened. And they don't want to hear it. It seems like that is not what they want to hear. They hammer away at him over and over again for more than an hour. What's really amazing is at one point he goes, I know what it's like to be molested. I was molested. He names this person that he accuses of molesting him and even says what his occupation is. These detectives show very little interest in pursuing that angle and bring it right back to Michael Jackson. Well, did you talk to Michael Jackson about that?
So the criminal case is basically going nowhere, but meanwhile the civil case is moving through the court system at the usual speed. So the judge in October of 1993 orders depositions. A deposition is where you're forced to state your case, to give your evidence under oath. It can be done in court, or it can be done under oath somewhere else and audio taped or videotaped. Now, he orders that Michael Jackson is to be deposed by January 94. The problem with this is that if you have a civil case which comes before a criminal case, and you're forced to give away your defense, then what that does is gives the prosecutors a front row seat for your defense. They can then go away and tailor their criminal case to circumvent your defense case. So, for example, if you say, I have an alibi in the civil case, then the prosecutors can go away and tailor their criminal case where they change all the dates, and they could just change the case to get around it. If you have a witness, they go and discredit the witness, or they put the charges on a day when the witness wasn't there. So they just take your defense out chunk by chunk, and by the time you come into a criminal court where your life is on the line, your freedom rather than your bank balance, you have no defense. You've wasted your defense trying to save some money, and now you're going to prison. That is the problem with a civil case preceding a criminal case. Now, from October 1993 to January 94, Michael's defense goes back to court 4 different times and argues to the judge, we need the civil case delayed so it doesn't precede the criminal case because this is unconstitutional. If you force our client to give away his defense, then you're denying him his constitutional right to a fair trial.
Michael Jackson lost 2 very important motions that he should have won. One was a preference. A preference has to do with either he was too young to remember and there's a memory issue, or he's too old.
What Larry Feldman keeps arguing is that because the complainant is a child, his memory is not fully developed, and he would be at risk of losing his memory if his testimony was not heard quickly.
Jordy Chandler was 14 at the time. He wasn't too young or too old.
The Jackson lawyers are going to court again and again and again to try to get this deposition put back, to get the civil case put back, so the criminal case can precede it. Meanwhile, the Chandlers are fighting hard to stop that from happening.
Evan Chandler was asking the court to push the civil case while the criminal case was going, because normally the criminal case has to take precedence over the civil case. He shouldn't have won on that one, because constitutionally that went against Michael's constitutional right. He won on that one too.
Michael's deposition is due on a particular date in January 94. What happens is initially he's saved by the Los Angeles earthquake of 94, which happens the day before he's supposed to be deposed. That buys them an extra week, but within that week they're again not able to postpone the civil case deposition.
When the judge is not ruling in your favor, that tells an attorney, maybe we need to settle this because he's not ruling in our favor right now.
And so on the eve, literally the night before, he would have been forced to give away his defense under oath. The civil settlement is reached. The civil case is settled.
He was negotiating, Johnny Cochran came on board. He was negotiating with the insurance company. At first the insurance company said no, they weren't going to pay it.
And he went back and forth, and Johnny Cochran negotiated. He was a great negotiator because he was a PI attorney. He started out a PI attorney, and he convinced the insurance company to pay the settlement. When Michael settled the case, the judge, they made him drop his extortion claim. So the real story hasn't been told. The real story is that Michael Jackson was the victim